Welcome, folks. Welcome back to Planet Paranormal Roundtable.
When did we add planet?
We just decided to have our own planet now. You know how we conquered Austin and we gave ourselves the awards and all that?
Yeah.
Well, people were like, you can't just give yourself awards unless the whole planet agrees.
So what's the next step?
We took over the planet.
Well, are we going to universe next?
Oh, you're talking about, well, we got to get to the solar system first. Okay. I was thinking like Venus.
We're going to get a trophy for that too, though, right?
That's right.
All right.
We're going to have all kinds of trophies. Trophies from every planet.
Yeah.
That's it. We'd be like Ming the Merciless from Flash Gordon. They're just going to have
Flash Gordon.
Yeah, exactly.
Savior of
the universe. And
That's
then
it.
I'm going to come out and just going to be like, Hail, Wolf, Hail. Oh, yeah, and Sal too.
Yeah. Well, hey, I don't mind floating behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be like Ming.
Yeah.
And I'll come out and all my planets come out and give me trophies for being such a good talk show host.
That's awesome.
Ridiculous.
Awesome.
We're ridiculous, folks. We know that.
Yeah.
That's why we got somebody like Lon to come on and balance us out.
When you got somebody like Lon, that last session we had with him, oh my God, just so much. And
he has a lot of stuff. We couldn't cram it all into an hour, 2 hours. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So we're doing
and it's
another.
Not just one topic. If you notice that, it's a whole plethora of a bunch of
his experiences, and then he talks about the different reports he's gotten.
And it's just and he's got years upon years worth of stuff that's been sent into him. Mm-hmm. Years and years of stuff that he's had the pleasure of investigating himself or some of his teammates that he's got with his 40 group. So, it's just, it's,
we hope that we could be there one day. Be like successful.
That'd be great, man. That'd be great. That's
I just
our
need
goal.
somebody to write the books for me. I'm too lazy to do it.
You need a wordsmith, huh?
I can't type because my hands, folks, my fingers have all been broken from boxing.
And so you just do
a chicken peck.
There you go.
And it's so frustrating. Like people that are close to me, well, like Anthony, you see me do it and you say it annoys you. He's like, I don't like watching you type.
Oh.
Is that what you say?
That's what my kids say to me. That's okay.
Yeah, it's hard to watch.
He says that I'm
sitting there like, hurry up and finish writing. It's a 3-letter word.
Oh my gosh. Come on, ain't that bad. You know what? I'm technologically impaired. I'm like the Amish.
Yeah, very much so. Yes, it's very annoying.
Awesome.
Wow.
So
there you go, folks. From you heard it from the mouth of the millennial.
There you go.
Yes.
So with that said, let's give him the email real quick, and then, gosh, we can dive right into the this episode with
Lon, because Lon's waiting in the wings. DasWolfman@gmail.com
and Wolf
or
and
DasWolfman88@gmail.com.
And wolfandsal@gmail.com.
See, I'm so old that I forgot the 88 on there, Sonny.
There you go.
It's okay, Pappy. That's why you got me.
All right. Well, anyways, folks, send us your stories.
Hateful millennial.
We want to hear them. You got 2 emails to choose from. Send us your stories. We want to hear them, and we want to put them on the show. So with that being said, let's dive right back in with Lon.
Let's get back into it. Here's a crazy story. I'm not going to get into a whole long because your stories are what we're here for. But there was a story that was given to me out of Caldwell, Texas, and I've gotten some weird reports in that area. And a kid told me, well, he's not a kid. I don't want to call him a kid. I'm sorry to call you that. His name's Larry. He's actually a good guy, but he's in his late 20s. So I guess to me he's a kid because I'm like an old man.
Yeah, same here.
But well, we're old guys, but to us, a 28-year-old is a kid. Okay, yeah. But anyway, he said that his grandfather told him that his dad had told him a story, which would be
the kid's great grandfather,
his great grandfather. Yeah, so he had said that at one time, this was back when he was a boy, so it would have been when his great grandfather was a kid. And I think he said it was the late 1800s or early 1900s, and that they were in town doing something, and that this giant wolf-like creature got loose, and that it mauled a woman in the street, and that the local law enforcement had to come out and they shot it several times to get it off of her, and it got up and it ran on 2 legs. And he said that there's an actual newspaper report of this. Now I haven't, because I just got this report like a few days ago. I haven't even gotten to show you yet, Armando.
Mm.
But the email that he sent me was crazy, and it said that the thing ran away on 2 legs, and that this woman didn't die, but that she was badly hurt, and that she lost the use of her arm. And this guy said that he saw this as a kid, like he saw it happen, and it was like freaked everybody out. Now, rural Texas back in the late 1800s, there were horses. They weren't no
horse-drawn carriages.
There was no cars. There was nothing. And
You'd have to have been in Austin to get one of those steam engines by then. The
you might have been
engine,
the family, the fancy ones, but and back Caldwell, that's out in the middle of nowhere.
That's in the sticks, so they had horse-drawn carriages.
It's still in the sticks. They may still use horse. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But anyway, he was saying that the horses were rearing up, and that he was freaking out, and that there were people moving everywhere, and that all he saw was like a giant wolf-like creature on top of something. He couldn't tell, and it was shaking, whatever it was. And that it got up and that it ran. Now, I know that the rumor was, according to him, that it was a Native American who was angry about something. And it attacked this woman because her husband had done something. And they claimed that was the revenge, that it was sent as a revenge or something. Sounds like Skinwalker to me. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But it's just crazy that wasn't. He said it was in the middle of the town, Main Street. Like, I don't know. That's just crazy.
There's not a lot to Caldwell anyways, but...
Well, yeah, but I mean, there were people there in broad daylight in the middle of the day buying feed and stuff. That's what he was in town for. They were
buying supplies.
Supplies or whatever for the farm they lived on, and that this had happened, and that there was some predation of cattle that had gone on previous to that.
Yeah, well, these old accounts in newspapers, when they try to report a Bigfoot, it's usually described as a wild man or a deranged black man that got loose somewhere. That's and if you look at them from the 1800s, that's usually the way they're described.
That's I've heard that a lot. That if you want to do research on old Sasquatch reports or old anything cryptid, you've got to look for the buzzwords, the keywords such as wild man, wild savage, hairy man, wild hairy man, things of that nature. The more creative you are with putting those words together, I would venture to say that you'd be a lot more successful than just putting Bigfoot out there, because they didn't use that word.
Yeah. Most print news was tabloid back then. Anyway.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But Lon, you had an encounter with a Bigfoot that looked Neanderthal-like, and but you said you had more than one cryptid encounter, right?
Yeah, I did. I had an encounter back in '88, which, strangely enough, kind of mirrors what people were seeing in Chicago.
Really?
You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, please elaborate on that. That sounds really interesting.
This was this happened in autumn of 1988. I had actually hooked up with a guy I went to school with, and he was a scoutmaster up here in Pennsylvania, but I was living down in Baltimore then. So he was at an exhibition outside of Baltimore representing some of the troops in his area. Well, anyway, we hadn't seen each other for many years, so we just started talking, and we sat down, and he remembered me doing the paranormal investigations when I was a kid. So he was very aware of it. So he told me, he said, I got something that's been going on. He said a few of the local troops had been camping up by the old Camp Conewago, and some of the boys have been reporting hearing crying sounds. They were spooked bad enough. A few of them left their campsites early. And he said that he and a friend were going up there the next weekend and try to figure out what's been going on. So he asked me, he said, "No, you want to go along?" I said, "Yeah, I'll come up." I figured I'd go up there and just look around for half a day and come on home, but it didn't work out that way. So I met those guys on a Friday, and he asked me, he said, "Well, we're going to stick around all the weekend." He said, "Do you want to stick around as well?" they had a tent for me and said, okay, well, I'll stick around. So
Oh,
we went in.
They baited you in, didn't they, Lon?
Yeah. We went into the woods and we set up the 3 tents, got camp, all set up and everything. Hey, by that time, it was about 7 in the evening, so we all stuck around the campsite. We were sitting around the fire just talking and such. So nothing happened that night, really. I mean, the only thing that was strange was now we had three tents. We were all in each of us were in a tent. But when we woke up the next morning, the other guy had stated that he heard something walking around the campsite. And quite frankly, I heard it too, but I thought it was one of them that got up, maybe relieved himself or something. So I didn't think any of it. So, I mean, it didn't look like anything was moved around the campsite, so we didn't think much of it then. So anyway, we got up next morning, pretty nice day, decided we're going to go out and start looking around the area. And, we were out in the woods all day. Now, these woods are real thick, too, and there's a lot of game and a lot of wildlife in this area. This is Camp Conewago, which is actually, I'd say about 10 miles northeast of Gettysburg. It's in Adams County. So I used to go there a lot when I was a kid in Boy Scouts. So when we got back to camp, we sat down to eat, and we were sitting around the campfire talking about football, quite honest with you. And we suddenly heard a scream coming from downstream. Now, this was around 11 o'clock. At first, I thought it sounded like an owl scream because, everybody talks about hooting owl, but they will scream sometimes. But a few minutes later, it happened again, and it distinctively sounded like a child screaming. So, I couldn't tell how far away it was, but, it lasted for several seconds and kind of seemed to fade in and out. So we got out, walked a few yards in the woods, expecting to hear it again, but it was quiet. And, we didn't hear anything else for a while. So we were still sitting around the campfire, and we decided, we're going to stay up tonight. Maybe we'll hear it again. So we're sitting there talking about what it could have been, bobcats, owls, or whatever. I don't know. But it did distinctly sound like a child screaming. So, of course, we decided to stay up for the night. And I don't know if it was a full moon, but I know it was bright enough that we could see the woods and the creek because we were along the Conewago Creek right beside it. So approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, I was walking the perimeter of the camp when I suddenly get that feeling like something was watching us. Now, you get that feeling sometimes. I stood still, looked around, didn't say anything. So I got back to the campsite and told them, and I just felt weird. I mean, something might be watching us. So we all got out. I said, why don't we take a walk out a little bit? So we got up, grabbed our flashlights, got onto the trail and started walking along the creek. And, we didn't get more than 50 foot away when we recognized to our right, standing in the creek, which was really shallow at that point, some large dark figure with bright red eyes standing in the creek. And by the time we got the flashlights on this thing, it suddenly shot up into the air and you could hear the whooshing sound. And as it got higher into the air, as it ascended, it screamed. And then it took off, and, we couldn't see it, but we could hear it, and it faded away. So we hurried back to campsite and started comparing thoughts about it. My buddy, he was shook. He wasn't even talking. I actually had to prod him to get him to talk. And the other guy was pretty calm, and he estimated the thing was about 6 foot in height, dark in color. We all agreed that it had red eyes. But he mentioned something about some type of structures on the back, which I saw too, and I thought it looked like wings. But it wasn't unfurled. I mean, it was real close to the back.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like tucked in the ready position, I guess.
Yeah, and this thing, when it jettisoned up, I mean, it didn't unfurl the wings. So, anyway, those two wanted to go and spend the rest of the night up the administration building. I wanted to stick around and see what the hell this thing was, and but nothing else happened the rest of the night. So, I had known about the Mothman and all that other wing stuff and all the sightings years and years before, and I really didn't think that's what this was, but I wasn't sure. So anyway, that was 2000. That was 1988. I didn't post the story about this until like 2008 on the blog. But when I posted it, I started getting all kinds of reports come in. And in fact, a guy that lived nearby told me, he said, he'd been hearing those screams for years, didn't know what it was. And he said he never saw anything, but he described it sounding like a child screaming. Then I got an email from a scout leader not long after that. The other guy sent me something, and he told me, he said that he and his boys had been out at the campsite, at the camp, and that the boys came running back one afternoon and told him that there was a dragon that was about 6 foot tall with wings and a tail that they saw on the trail, and they were freaked out. He thought they were playing with him. So he didn't really take them seriously. He did go out on the trail. He didn't see anything, so he thought they were lying to him. But when he read my account, then he realized they may have seen something. So now, since that time, I have the Conewago Creek actually goes for quite a distance. It goes a little west, then goes directly east, and then empties into the Susquehanna River. I have received 5 reports over the years of a similar type being seen along the creek in other locations. And it's actually seen to be moving its way downstream. Now, my investigator, my friend Timothy Renner, who is part of my the Fortean research team, he's been investigating an area called Cador's Furnace, and it's not far from where the Conewago Creek empties into the Susquehanna, and he has seen and heard of a lot of phenomena in that area too. And in fact, I had a witness who lived near there have an encounter with a similar being. So I don't know what the hell this thing is. Now people call it, people in the area call it Old Red Eye.
Well, it's appropriate.
That makes sense.
That's what they've been calling it. So, the reports I got were from just regular people. So, but the one thing is, it's very similar to what people have been describing out in Chicago.
I find it really interesting because I've viewed, a good bit of Stan Gordon's work, and I know his particular, I guess you could say his area that he focuses on is the cryptid and UFO connection. It's usually, and I do seem to remember that there were a few stories and incidents, not stories. I don't like to call them stories because stories implies they're made up, but these incidents that people reported seeing a being, red-eyed being, and then of course the UFO, the UFO aspect mixes in because they see both. And oddly enough, you focus on the Pennsylvania. Gosh, I can't even speak. Pardon me, but when people mention Pennsylvania to me, I start thinking Kecksburg. I start thinking that for starters, and then everything else from there it just flows as far as my mind, thinking about all that stuff. So I find it really, really interesting that you had that particular encounter. You watched this being just jump or take off into the air and just, wow. To me, I can't even imagine.
Well, Stan and I keep in contact with each other all the time, and we kind of bounce a lot of this stuff off each other. And of course, he gets a lot of reports out there where he's at. In fact, I just got an investigator out in the Pittsburgh area in the group. So, we need, I've got several people in the state that get encounters and reports and are collecting it. And we need people to go out and investigate a lot of this. Stan doesn't go out like he used to.
Right.
But, there's so much that goes on in this state. And, Stan has been talking about the Bigfoot phenomena connected to the UFO phenomena for many, many years. And he's also been a proponent of the interdimensional theory. And, he used to get ridiculed about that. And I've been talking about that now for the past decade. I've been ridiculed by, because of that. But quite frank with you, the Bigfoot community is kind of becoming a little more open-minded now, because first, they haven't found a body. They don't know what the hell this thing is. Nobody's ever seen a body. The evidence is scant. So where's that leave you? Is this thing a true being, or is this thing possibly flesh and blood that comes in and out of another realm?
Yeah, I'm with the latter versus the former, because, the interdimensional aspect, you hear these encounters where people have had the fortune or misfortune, whichever you wish to take, that they've shot and killed one and watched it drop. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, if you get a body, the government's not going to let you keep it.
No.
They're going to come in and sweep it up, and you'll be, you'll be ridiculed,
Sure.
Character assassination, you name it. There's so many ways for electronically, digitally to get at people. So the fear of losing access to your funds, bank accounts, you name it, guess what? That's a real big threat. Most people don't want that threatened.
Keep people in line.
Yeah, keep you in line. And so I heavily lean to that side, that it's an interdimensional being, and all these other strange, odd creatures, a lot of them being interdimensional. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, deep state stuff, guess what? We've already mapped the human genome. So who's to say that we haven't, we as a species, as a human race, in those dark corners, black labs somewhere, that they haven't already been messing around with cloning human beings and everything else under the sun.
And we got a report about I wouldn't call it if I remember correctly, I have to go back and look it up, but wasn't it in Wales? Or no,
it was in Great Britain.
It was in Great Britain, and they saw a craft, and then there was a Dogman type creature, but I believe that it looked like it had like the normal
human legs,
normal body. Yeah, that's what it was, and it had like a snout. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we covered that report, and that was weird.
There's an episode before, yeah.
Somebody gave us that report. So that, and then we have guests that come on, and then they don't subscribe to the interdimensional type theory at all. We just had Ken Gerhard. He said
he stays strictly with science.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But he said Dogman, he thinks it's a supernatural being, but he doesn't think that Bigfoot is. Like, Bigfoot is strictly like evolutionarily, it's a creature that's evolved, and then he believes that Dogman is possible supernatural. Well, Simon Young, he said the same thing when it came to his Yowie research down in Australia. He said that he believes that they're flesh and blood beings. They're not interdimensional, whatever. But the Dogman thing, he said that he thinks it could, the ones that they see in Australia, he doesn't think that they're actual flesh and blood. He thinks that they're supernatural entities that are demonic. And, of course, the list goes on and on. Lots of people say that. I mean, we've had lots of different researchers and authors, and a lot of different types of people tell us different theories and what they believe. And I'm somewhere in the middle of that. I mean, I think that I don't know what's going on. I guess I'm kind of like Tally from South Park. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to figure it out. It's just so vast. The
definitely.
Well, you're gonna have to read my new book, because I cover a lot of that. As far as the aliens and what could have been and what possibly could have happened. I do believe a lot of that is connected to what people experience now, even with where cryptids go.
Now I have a
there's
couple
connection,
questions
definitely.
I have a couple questions for you, Lon.
Mhm.
The first one being, and these are two totally not really related, but the first one is that, you mentioned earlier about, you had your first encounter and you remember how you felt, everything, the whole 9 yards, right? And then your second encounter with the old red eye, as he's known around there, and you said you felt that way again, like you were just being, you were being watched.
Mhm.
Now, many people report that. Could you say that you had always felt that way, or this was just something that hit you, or I mean, I don't know. It's maybe I'm not
some
explaining
people
myself.
do express that. It's interesting. A lot of the people, just like the winged humanoid encounters,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people had this sense of dread when they saw this thing.
Right.
That they get that sixth sense kind of heightens when they have an encounter like that. Now, I don't know if it's because of the shock or whatever, but they do seem to have specific feelings of fear or dread or something's going to happen.
Right.
I mean, it occasionally happens with people that have Bigfoot encounters. The upright canines, same thing. But is that shock or is that just something palpable that maybe the creature's emanating?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That could happen, and I've heard it many times.
So would you say that that's kind of, I guess what I'm saying is, once you've experienced it, it's there. You're always in tune with it. You'll catch on that.
Yeah, probably.
Okay,
that's very possible, I believe.
I think there's some there's some validity to that, because once it's kind of when they say, once the rose-colored glasses have been lifted off, you don't look at the world the same way.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that opens up, your synapses in your brain are firing differently now in order to process what you're seeing, this world around you. I just find that really interesting. Secondly, the second question that wasn't related to that, we were talking about all the interdimensional beings and all the stuff that's going on. Science has proven, and there's mainstream science articles out there that have proven that mental telepathy between people is very real.
Mm-hmm.
And though they've done crude experiments, and you can find it on the internet, I've posted it a few times on, posted the links on our Facebook page about, it was a rudimentary exercise. I think it was done by one of those big schools up in the Northeast, Harvard, Yale, somebody like that, or MIT maybe, but that they put the little harnesses and they had two separate people, two separate rooms, one think of something, draw it, and then the other one is supposed to pick up on it and draw it, so to speak. At the end of the day, the proof that they, all the data they gathered, it proved that it is possible. Though in that particular situation, it's computer aided, but the fact that it is possible and it actually happened says a lot. So what this, in this this is where I'm
posted
segueing.
that on Paranormal Roundtable?
I posted it before, maybe on my.
Because I don't remember seeing that.
But it's there. It's been around for about 4 or 5 years. But it was posted and it's from a science website. But what I'm getting at with that is when you think of, when people think of UFOs and these extraterrestrial beings or ultra-terrestrial beings, normally you think high science, super, super duper, way advanced science. And if they can abduct us, why not Dogman? Why not Bigfoot? Why not any of these other cryptids?
Well, I think that's the whole Dulce thing, too, that we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. And, to me, so the question with all that being said, Lon, is what is your take on the possibility that Dogmen or the upright canids are a product of maybe these particular extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial beings that were brought in from another dimension or from another planet? Is you think that's a big possibility?
Oh, I think it's a possibility. I used to. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with J.C. Johnson.
Oh,
who
yeah.
passed away about a year and a half ago.
Phenomenal.
Anyway,
Phenomenal.
I did a lot of documentation of what J.C. looked at and what he saw and such. And between J.C. and a couple other people that lived out in that area, they talked about this as well. That though they weren't close to Dulce, who knew what else is out there that they don't know about as far as government facilities and such. So some of the strange creatures that are out there, and I mean to tell you, that Dene Navajo reservation in New Mexico and Arizona,
the Four Corners,
has had some of the strangest phenomena I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And who's to say that since it's so heavy in government land and government facility, who's to say that there isn't something that was bioengineered somehow and got loose or was released or whatever? Because there are some very bizarre sightings of these, winged creatures,
yes,
canines, large Bigfoot. There's a lot of it out there. There was a lot of a lot of people talked about JC being just crazy, but I'm telling you, some of the stuff that he and I had talked about over the years, and some of the witnesses who I talked to out there, who were all Native American. Some of it, there's something that's definitely going on out there.
So, in keeping with the strange being, strange everything, were you privy to being able to see that video or not video? I'm sorry, the picture that was made its rounds through the Facebook and internet about the supposedly. It was a picture of a large, looked like 10 to 12 foot winged being, according to the person who posted it. And according to that person, it was around Mesa, Arizona, where the picture was taken at night. Did you ever see that one?
I've seen so many pictures. I don't know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I think if you look it up on the internet, it says Mesa, Arizona, or Phoenix, one of those, because they've grown together around that area.
Right.
But it was reportedly the guy posted this picture that was reportedly taken in Phoenix, Mesa, all that area, and it was this large. It looks like a giant, red-eyed, large winged being out there. Now, as far as you were talking about Dulce, of course, they got the Apache reservation out there in that area, and in the reports within the UFO community, they claim that there is a large underground base underneath Dulce, New Mexico. And so to me, when you mention the whole plethora of strange and odd creatures being spotted in and around that area, not to mention the Four Corners in the for the Navajo Nation, I don't find that odd at all. And then you've got to think about Skinwalker Ranch. How far away really is that from, when you do the math, how far is it from this, reported area that the underground base is at around Dulce? I wouldn't say it's too far, but
it's considerable distance actually. I mean, you got to go through. It's up in northeastern Utah, which you got to go through Colorado and up into Utah. But there are a lot of government facilities out in Utah too.
Yeah, and
there's
one out in Dugway.
Dugway, in my opinion, is probably the new area has taken over for what Area 51 used to be. I think some of the people I've talked to that have been in and around Dugway, there's something really bizarre out there. And it has been for quite a while, but it's definitely ramped up over the last few years.
Well, I know that when I was active duty, and many guys that I'd spoken to that had went through, the U.S. Army Ranger School, the desert phase used to go out to Dugway, Utah, to train desert phase out there, and many of them I heard in passing, many of them said, if you really want to get your dose of radioactive and see weird kind of stuff crawling around on the ground, you can find it out in Dugway. And I
Yeah, I've
never
heard a lot
really
of stories.
Yeah, and I never really understood what they were getting at. They never really alluded to anything in particular, but just the fact that they phrased it that way, just, later on, hindsight's 20/20. Later on, I thought, I wonder how many of those guys, I wished I could have asked them, see what they saw, what they experienced out there. But, strange creatures out in that area, when you think about it, when you think Southwest and overall picture of it, it's like a big corridor from the Four Corners, Dulce, all the way up to, that part of Utah. It's amazing if you stop and look.
Well, even the Marine Corps base, so 29 Palms.
Yeah.
I've heard stories out of there that there's
and then
Bigfoot
you got Nellis somewhere. You got Nellis somewhere along the way.
Well, Nellis is right. It's right south of. Nellis is south of Area 51.
Yeah, and so you got
that's
all
the
that
staging
stuff.
point. That's where, and then you drive, and then anyway, I'm not going to get into all that, but
I just find it really interesting and not surprising though, with all these strange and different creatures they claim to see out there, just due to all the UFO connected stuff that you hear about from out there too.
Speaking of flying creatures and strange encounter, all this stuff we're talking about, one of the things that we had gotten reports of, Lon, were of these, and I like I've told the audience many times, I look for threads.
Yeah.
Like I'll get a weird report of something, somebody will send me something, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know what that is, and I'll just kind of file it away.
Yeah, like your gargoyle type creature stories.
That was what I was about to say. Oh, that's crazy. That was just about to talk about that, because these winged creatures, and we got one that was like I didn't know where it fit in, and then I got another one from Ohio, and then there was one from New Mexico, and then in that corridor you were talking about, and then another one from Ohio. But the creature sounded, I mean, it sounded like the same creature almost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the way it was described was it was gray, ash gray. It had a bulldog type face, and it had these bat-like wings. Very muscular arms, muscular legs, and the weird thing about it had a piece of chain or something around its neck. Like it was, it sounded like the same creature, and when you, these stories were given to me years apart. Like I had that one story, and I never.
That sat on a shelf for quite a long time.
Yeah, because I didn't know what it was. I didn't call it a gargoyle because I didn't know, no, they didn't use the word gargoyle.
No,
none of these people
wasn't it the second or was it the third? I can't remember off the top of my head if the third witness said it reminded them of a gargoyle.
And I think that was my friend from his people in South in Northwest Texas. They saw something similar to that at a football field. There was nobody was there. They were running the bleachers or whatever. They saw something on the other side. But have you got any reports of anything like that looks like that, Lon?
Yeah, some of the reports out of Chicago were described as looking like gargoyle. There was one in particular that was described like a gargoyle that was perched atop a street light or a street sign, that came off of a street light, the arm off of it, and that guy said it kind of looked like a gargoyle to him. He was parked at not parked, but he stopped at the crosswalk with the light, and he was in the evening. He saw that thing sitting up there, and that's what he said it was, a gargoyle. And I had a couple other people describe them as gargoyles.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Well, what did they say they looked like exactly? Like, I mean,
it was pretty similar to what the other sightings were. But they said it had a kind of a more squat head on it, and it seemed a bit more muscular than some of the other ones were. But overall, it was kind of the same thing. It had red eyes, some of them didn't. So like I said, I received a lot of different reports, but for the most part, it was the same thing. And, everybody has their own perspective of things anyway. You kind of got to go by what they say and kind of figure, is it the same thing? But then again, I've been saying all along, I thought there were at least 3 of these things. So there could have very well been some differences to them.
And that's weird that they would all be in the same vicinity.
Yeah.
3 different times. That really lends credence to the idea that maybe they did come from some sort of facility. Maybe
or
they
brought here interdimensionally.
Or they were brought. Something brought them here, and then they escaped, or something,
or turned loose.
Turned loose, or something. Something happened.
It's really interesting. But the one thing that I did want to ask you, Lon, Wolf mentioned those the 2 stories that had the identical little thread about this creature, gargoyle type looking creature, had this chain around its neck, as if it's like a pet or it's an amulet or something. But the fact
it was broken too, like it was hanging off the neck, like
when a dog.
The way that they
chain
described it too was like a chain link, like a link chain, not like a necklace, but like a chain link. Like you would lock something up with.
I don't know, maybe somebody's pet. I have no idea.
Somebody's pet.
Somebody's pet that got away.
Well, what do you think about that? Like, go ahead, Sal. I know where you're going.
No, it's just, have you had any stories that come across with these weird little things like that? Because Wolf and I tend, when we get reports and people tell us their stories, we key in on those details because, again, the little threads that tie them together. And that way it helps us to categorize everything into their own smaller niches within a large pool, for lack of better words, because we had remember the Mason County, Texas, creature that these kids saw, and that was a really strange one. But at the end of the day, and I know we spoke with Scott Martis in a recent episode in regards to ancient creatures that used to roam, here in the continental, in the continental U.S., i.e., North America. And in this creature, when we got this report, this creature, sounded pretty, it resembled the way
and
they
we actually
described
talked about that with Ken Gerhardt too.
Yeah, we did. And
what's interesting too, though, is not just that, not just the Dinopithecus angle or whatever. You get, like what Lon was talking about, pterosaurs.
Yeah.
I mean, you get these people like in South Texas, is where the ones we're getting from are typically in South Texas. I don't know what it is, but we're getting these stories of these things that look like pterodactyls.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's what we do.
That area from San Antonio south into Brownsville and then over into, I don't know how much far over, but that whole area in there, I probably get more reports from that specific area.
Really?
Than anywhere else. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I've talked to Ken about that. And I've actually sent him to some of the locations because, I get a lot of reports down there. And, I've had anywhere from little Roadrunner-sized T-Rexes to, I've had winged humanoids down there as well. I had a winged humanoid sighting not far from where you guys are in Austin. But down there, and I tell you, south of San Antonio is a lot of weird stuff. Then and around San Antonio,
it is. Yeah,
I get a lot of Bigfoot up into the hill country.
Oh yeah, that's very common around here.
And there's one area up there that it's an actual ranch, and I mean, tell you, this guy has been capturing images of these things for years, and it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, there's the Bigfoot activity in the hill country is just unbelievable.
We've had a couple. I don't know if you're familiar with any of my work, Lon. I mean, like I said, I haven't been at this a long time as far as like on the radio. I've done tons of research and tons of like field reports, over the years, but hadn't really been talking about it until the last 4 or 5 years. But I had some stories that we got from some people that we worked with, and me and the guys that I work with kind of fell into this with these dudes because of where they're located. And we worked with these guys for, I don't know, Anthony, how long did we work with before he told us the stories? 2 years?
Yeah, just about.
It was about 2 years, and we worked with this guy. And then he comes on if he tells me, we started talking about it because he heard me listening to a podcast, which I don't do a whole lot of, and he started telling me, he goes, I know what those are. He didn't know what to call them. They didn't call him Dogman. They didn't call him werewolves. He just had like, he described it. And I was like, that sounds very similar to what a lot of people, and so we ended up with this whole like investigation, I guess. And so I did my own investigating with it, and I ended up meeting his uncles. And his uncle, well, he's deceased now, but he claimed that he had one of these things from when it was a baby, like a puppy or whatever, and that it had lost its mother. And of course, everybody that is in my inner circle, they've met these guys. I mean, and they've talked to them. And I don't think they were lying to us about that, because they didn't know what the heck this was until we had, And so it was like the guy says, I know what that is. He goes, they look like wolves. He goes, but they're not. They can stand up.
Yeah, they call them wolves. That's
wolves. That's all he said. And then Noah, of course, he called them wolves. He said they were pests. They were just pests to be killed. But his older brother, had one. And so he had one for several years, and it was like they
got used to coming around.
It was habituated.
Yeah.
Habituated.
Thank you. That's the right word I was looking for.
Yeah. And he called it stripes. And, of course, I've got a lot of people that have speculated. I don't know what he looked like. I never saw it, but a lot of people have speculated that because it had a certain stripe to it, that it might have been a hyena type creature. But the way they described it was not hyena-like. It was very wolf-like. And these people, they lived on this ranch, and it was one time, it was all one big ranch, but it had been partitioned off into like 4 different places. And so they all lived side by side each other in these different land, different pieces of the same ranch or whatever. But it was in that whole corridor. It was sort of in between Austin and San Antonio going west. Like it would be kind of like east of Kerrville, but then So and then here recently we ended up meeting a guy who sent us some stories, and
his name is Ernest. Not his real name.
Not his real name, but we call him Ernest. But he lives in that same area, not the exact same area, but in close. And
his grandfather's got a place
he
out
owns
there.
some land. Yeah, and he owns
out in that area.
He owns 3 or 4 big pieces of land, but in that area they have a piece of land, and he's like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. They've been out here for a long time. And not too long ago, I'd say maybe not even a month ago, I got a report from somebody who was out on the river, the Kamal River, and that they saw something on the bank, and it looked like it was drinking water with its hands, and it was very wolf-like. And they said it had hands. And so, you get these reports, and I don't know what that is. I mean, I have no idea like why that area is so full of these reports of these creatures. I don't know. Somebody had told me that there is a lot, and I don't know if this is the absolute gospel truth, but that a lot of the area between Austin and San Antonio is limestone in the south. A lot of it,
maybe,
and that there's something to the underground. Like because I know there's a lot of caves.
Yeah, we got lots of caves around here.
Yeah, because there's natural bridge caverns and there's interspace caverns, and it just goes on and on. But somebody told me though that could be where they come from.
Cave system, or use the cave system to travel about undetected.
I mean, they could live underground and they could come out, and maybe that's why people think that they're interdimensional too, because they pop up and disappear, because maybe they can just go underground really quickly. I mean, what do you think about that, Lon?
Well, anything's possible, as long as I've been doing this. I mean, there's very little that surprises me anymore, but I have heard all kinds of stuff. Texas itself, it's so big, and there's so many different types of areas out there. I have heard some really bizarre stuff from out in Texas.
Yeah, so have we.
And even talking about UFO and a possible alien species as well. I mean, it's been a lot of weird stuff. Now, the hill country in particular, anywhere that area between San Antonio and up into Austin, I'd say it's mostly Bigfoot more than anything else. but it's a lot of Bigfoot. You got all those, especially along the Guadalupe and those areas. It's those ranches. A lot of them have had a lot of sightings. And when you're talking habituation, yeah, you're talking about habituation too there. But like I said, as you go further south and when you go further west into the Panhandle, it's a lot of weird stuff. I mean, just really, really unexplained beings.
Would it be something you would categorize, Lon, that once you get the report and say the person reporting, said cryptid, would you say that a lot of those stories you would have to put them in their own tiny little category because they don't line up with a lot of the main cryptid type creatures that are reported?
Yeah, I got away from the main cryptid a long time ago. It was always just Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. Then of course we start getting winged humanoids and
Sykesville monster,
upright canine, and then now we starting to get pterodactyls and little T-Rexes. So I mean, look, there's a lot of different stuff that I've heard over the years, and but no, like I said earlier, Texas, of course, has provided a lot of the more weird sightings of stuff. And actually, I used to do a lot of haunting, get a lot of haunting reports in the hill country too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have our own little spot stuff here.
Anything in the Devil's Backbone? You ever been there or heard of it?
Yeah, that's
maybe, but
it's nestled in the hill country.
Yeah, it is squarely there in the hill country. It's a very haunted place.
Yeah.
And we get cryptid reports out of there too.
Yeah,
one thing we were talking about with Ken was that it's very odd how the reports we get from the Devil's Backbone is kind of divided. There's a section of it that we get some Dogman reports and no Bigfoot.
Right.
And then on the other side, the larger side of it, it's Bigfoot.
But no Dogman.
But no Dogman. It's like they're divided. They know.
They know
it's almost like they know
boundaries.
Yeah, there's like a boundary there. But then we also got Goatman stories out of there too.
Yeah, it's
Lon, you were talking about that.
Yeah,
Butch and I had noticed that there's a delineation of locations in Pennsylvania where these upright canines and Bigfoot seem to stay away from each other. In other words, along mountain ridges, the upright canines seem to run along the ridge, and the Bigfoot are down the valleys. The reports we get are very rarely, or for Bigfoot, are very rarely up in the mountains, but it's just the opposite for upright canines. Yeah, so I think here in particular, even though I think they're mostly supernatural, I think they do migrate. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I think they do migrate to a point because it seems a lot of it does seem to travel along the Blue Ridge and from West Virginia up through Maryland into Pennsylvania, back and forth. So do they do the actually on land, or they just do it interdimensionally? Do they migrate? I don't know. But it seems that a lot of these stories, a lot of these sightings are very similar.
That's I have to agree with you on that. I've been a proponent of the migration, and again, mainstream science, gives us data on how wolf packs and how far their ranges are, et cetera, correct? So when you think of 8, 7 to 9, maybe even 10, 12 in some cases that people have reported, you have these upright walking canid beings covering 50 to 100 miles would be easy to them when you're thinking in relation to what we know that wolves cover on the average as far as wolf packs concerned,
Mm-hmm.
And also that's and with the Sasquatch, I tell people, I'm of the opinion, and I tell a lot of people that I speak with it, I look at them as far as having a culture. I think of them more or less as far as their migratory patterns. I would say it mirrors what the old the Iroquois and the Mohawk and all those back in the 1700s, they would have their certain areas they would migrate to all year round in order to not, for lack of better words, exhaust one area. They had another area to move to, and so on and so forth. And I know that's part of, that's in the history books of how they migrated all these areas. And I think the Sasquatch do the same thing, so that way they don't exhaust an area. I don't know. I haven't come up with a conclusion or a position on if the Dogmen do the same thing. But as far as covering a much larger range than a wolf pack, I would be okay if, I would speculate 150 to 200 mile range easily to cover, as far as their home territory. Which brings me to the next thing. As far as migratory, you mentioned caves a while ago, lots of caves around here in Texas and in the areas you were talking about around the Blue Ridge Mountains, all that stuff. Do you guys have a lot of cave systems in and around that area and as well as all over Pennsylvania that you know of?
Yeah, I think a lot of sighting or heavy sighting areas, the upright canines do have a lot of caves. That's one thing we have noticed. A lot of old coal mining, a lot of old coal mines and such in these areas. Yeah, there's a lot of caves up here.
That's amazing. Wow, I guess we've been going at it for a while, Lon. And folks, it's been a whirlwind, and gosh, I think we need to have you on again.
Yeah, heck yeah. The book Alien Disclosure and all of your other books. And like I said, folks,
go visit his website.
For reference, if you want good reference, because I've referenced that Penelope story a couple times. I just went back because it was just so creepy to me. It creeped me out.
The best way to find that, if you go to the website and on the right-hand column, just scroll down, there's a search tool there, and just put Penelope in there or Sierra Nevada and just click it, and it'll come up.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You are one of our favorites because, like I said, I've been reading your books for years, long time. Your research, everything.
Well, I'm working on another one. I'm working on a flying cryptid book now.
Oh man,
nice.
You got to come back when you get that, and we can do some more talking.
Yeah, we definitely want you again on the show.
Me and Armando aren't good for much, but we can talk. We can talk to you. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing though. I am. Just like Wolf.
And where can you get the books at, Lon? Amazon?
Just go to Amazon and search Lon Strickler, and they'll all come up.
Will they? If folks don't go to Amazon, will they be able to go to your website and order it there too?
Well, they can click. I have them up there where they can click it, and
it'll take them
to Amazon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, there you have it, folks.
Yep.
So, Lon, it's been a pleasure. Mm-hmm. It's been a great pleasure, and I'm sure
and an honor.
Yes. That goes without saying.
Yeah, no problem.
It's been great. And we do want you to come back on the show again.
Yeah, anytime you want, or if you want us to come on your show and
annoy your fans.
I can definitely do that.
We'll come on and we'll annoy your fans with our blabber.
Yeah. Oh God! But gosh, this has been great.
We'll do that. We'll pick some cryptid subject, and we'll talk about them.
Yeah, I'll bring on some stories that I got. And if you get any, you need some investigations of Dogman, like the really scary, deadly ones, I'll send Armando out to do that for you.
Wolf has already made it clear as crystal.
No, we did. But before,
yeah.
But then I got married, and now she's like, "No, we're gonna go look for it." So she's determined to get me killed.
Oh, okay.
So we've done a little bit of investigating. We've gone out and done some stuff recently.
But hey, like you said, though, what still holds true is the fact you said, "Look, I ain't afraid of no man," but this thing, it just pick you apart.
There's
like
no way
candy.
Because I know what it's set. There's no way. It's just not. No.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I've never seen one. Haven't really ever had any kind of real paranormal experience, but I'm one of those that I try to keep it on my mind and say, hey, look, I wasn't there. And, and of course, judging who the person is and so on and so forth. I say, hey, I'm open to it because this world is full of mysteries.
It is. It's very
Well,
mysterious.
I'd be honest with you. I used to do a lot of hunting when I was younger, and I spent a lot of time out in the woods and the fields. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think I'd go out there anymore.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
Seriously, because even the areas particularly areas I used to go into, I'd really think twice about it.
Yeah.
I have to agree. Every time I go out
That's right.
into the woods, fishing or anything else like that, I'm on alert. I'm hyper vigilant, and like I said, not that I don't enjoy myself, but I always have in the back of my mind that, you know, is this going to be the day I see something completely and totally, you know, that's not supposed to be, you know, in this realm of existence, you know? So, you know, it's kind of it's one of those things, and, you know, it's been a wild ride. So that's always my take on it is I wasn't there. So let me hear them out. And if they're lying, usually you'll figure it out. You can, you know, sift through all the BS. And so, gosh.
So anyways, folks, check out Lon Strickler, his work. He's got a lot of work. Arcane Radio, great show. Everything he does, pretty good. So,
yeah, Lon.
And Lon,
definitely.
thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good one. Wow. Folks, all I can say right now is I am blown away with the amount of knowledge and reports and accounts that Lon has. It has been a true pleasure to have him on the show.
What he brings to the table is staggering. Like, I really didn't. I knew he had a lot of material, but he just has so much. And I encourage everyone to go
to his website. I mean,
check out his stuff, his blog. Check out his you know, his
all
website,
the material
his
he's got
books.
Yeah, definitely his books. I mean, some people may not find it very, you know, pleasing to go to the website and check all the stuff out. Get the books. I'm one of those people that I have to get the book. It's I don't know why, but that's just the way I'm geared. So
the only one I haven't read is Alien Disclosure. That's the one, the latest one.
Yeah,
I've read his. I like Ken's work. I like. I read. I'm a reader, and Sal's the watcher.
Yeah, I watch and listen.
He watches
tons
the
of
YouTube videos and all that, and I do a little bit. I like a few shows.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just so much out there. But Lon is one of the heavyweights. It's got lots of information out there. He's got lots of reports under his belt, and he's been doing it for a long time. So, with that being said, folks, remember, you know, Phantoms and Monsters, Lon Strickler. It's not that hard. Put it in your search engine and boom, hit that enter button and watch it pop up and go check his stuff out.
Remember,
folks.
kids, you know enough.
Oh, man. I tell you what, my mind's still smoking right now. So, you know, with that being said, thank you for being with us, folks. And it was an honor and pleasure to have
Like and subscribe, DasWolfman88@gmail.com.
And wolfandsal@gmail.com. Have a good one.